We're seeing the US dollar up around 0.5% against the rand. Quite fascinating that we have seen the rand holding its own. US Treasury yield differentials relative to what we see with the bonds in South Africa, it seems that it has been a supporting factor for rand strength. Do you think it's something that could be maintained down the line, or do you think we could see a reversal of those flows?
I think currently it will stay on board. The interest rates that they're getting in South Africa are very high, and that carry trade coming through, people borrowing from Japan as well as the States and putting it into South African bonds. And I think that will carry on for the time being until we start to see the US Fed start to increase their rates. So until there's an increase in rates there, that carry trade will be supportive of the rand. We see a bit of dollar strength coming in now. There is proposed tax breaks for companies in the States, and they are repatriating a lot of their money and earnings from foreign countries back into the States. So we've seen a bit of dollar strength coming in because of that as well. But in a whole, I think the carry trade will last for another 6 months easily.
Well, Rob, it's fascinating. I mean, you're talking about interest rates being hiked in the US, and we've heard time and time again by Ben Bernanke that that will only really start happening when we do see the unemployment scenario in the US starting to show signs that things are in fact getting better. So perhaps it's going to be longer than 6 months. Can we allude to perhaps a year or even a year and a half down the line?
It's difficult to tell, Eleni, but I think that obviously you do need that American consumer to start firing again, start buying, and that will only happen once everybody's employed. So, to get that American market moving, you do need unemployment to come down, and maybe it does take longer than 6 months. So we just have to wait and see. But I think that'll be the only point, as you say, is when interest rate will move in the States and the carry trade will come off, and you'll start to see a very quick weakening in the rand then.
Let's touch on Goldfields. The company out with a trading update today and says production is going to increase by around 5%. Also interesting to note that most analysts out there are expecting an even bigger increase in production numbers. Yesterday, Goldfields rallying 3%. It's now down 1% today.
Yes, I don't think the end of the world in the production numbers. They're still up 5%. And as they said, that they had 2 seismic events in South Africa where they had to close the mines for a few days, as well as all of the public holidays. If you take that into effect, I think probably production would have been more around about 7%. So not looking too bad there. I think with the gold price where it is currently, they really do need to push for extra production. Their mines are looking really good overseas as well. And I think they'll get closer to those analyst expectations by the end of the year. I think that they've really been hit from about 114 rand all the way into the low 90s. I still think there is some value in Goldfields at these levels.
Yeah, well, cash costs, I mean, when you look at those numbers, between $815 an ounce and $1,185 an ounce, it is, of course, on the upper end of what most gold miners are experiencing in South Africa and on a global level. Are you happy with these numbers, or do you think that if we do see gold prices coming down significantly, we know we breached the $1,500 an ounce level earlier this week, that it could put Goldfields in a difficult situation?
Well, I think that while the world is still relatively unsettled, I think gold will stay relatively firm. I think it will have to come below maybe $1,300 to cause a real big problem for Goldfields. So I think there is still leeway for a slightly weaker gold price, and Goldfields still to remain and be relatively profitable. So I think that you need quite a big pullback in that gold price to really affect their earnings.
Let's touch on Meterex, also under the spotlight since yesterday, and ending the day off yesterday at just above 8 rand. We've been seeing quite a bit of speculation priced into this company. Vale saying that they expect another offer to come through for Meterex, but Meterex saying that no firm offer has come through other than Vale's offer. So how do you think this is going to play out? Would you say that it's time now to either sell out of Meterex, or do you think that the prospects are that positive that even coming in at 8 rand a share is going to be beneficial for investors?
Well, I think the initial bid is at about 7.34, 7 rand 35. So 8 rand is quite a big premium to that. There's 2 ways to look at it. What is your view on copper as a whole? We see that the copper price has moved up again over the last few months as people expect China to stop their tightening measures. That some of the economic data hasn't been as strong as normal. That copper price is pushing up. If you take a really good view on copper going forward, I think you'd still look as a long-term purchase to stay in Meterex. If you take it just on the corporate action side, I think 8 rand is looking a little bit steep. It values the company at about 8 billion rand currently, and is at a very big premium. It's about 500 million rand premium from what Vale was bidding. So 8 rand I think is a fair level. If somebody does come in at around the 8 rand 30, there is a little bit of fat there for you. But I'll probably be lightening my holdings in Meterex for the corporate action just over this period. If you want to gamble at it and see if there's 8 Rand 30 there, you can. But maybe take a long-term copper view. And that's the way to look at it.
Just looking down at the SENS announcements out a short while ago, Lonmin says that it sees capex at $400 million per annum up to 2015. Lonmin is up around 0.3% at this stage. What are your prospects for the overall platinum sector, Rob? Do you think that there's still value to be found?
I think there's a lot of value in that sector. I think that the amount of vehicle sales around the world still hasn't recovered properly from the levels before in 2008. So I think that there is a lot of upside on that side. I think Lonmin especially has been battling with a few of their costs and a few of their mines as well. They've also come from about 215 Rand all the way back down to about 157, 160 Rand where they're trading now. And I do think there is a little fat in some of these platinum miners. So I think it is something to look at.
With regards to where you're seeing overall value though, Rob, on the JSE, I mean, some say that markets looking fairly priced, other sectors looking kind of expensive. Where would you be putting your money right now? And we've also got to take into consideration there's quite a few deals that are in the pipeline.
Yes, I think if you take a look at the long-term P of the exchange, I think we're trading at about 14.7 and the long-term average is about 14.5 PE. So I don't think that we're excessively expensive at this stage. Some of the very big miners in like Billiton and Anglo American are still really way off their highs that we saw in 2007. So I think if you look closely at certain sectors, there still is value in South Africa, and I don't think that we're overpriced.